Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, today this would be the second part of the previous lecture. We left somewhere like here, or I think here. Okay, fine. The definition of trauma. So look at this one. Okay, keep this argument, these three arguments in mind. That the discussion in this semi-drama would be something between the ancient drama or theatre and modern drama or theatre. And by modern we mean restoration drama and Elizabethan drama. Okay, 16th century drama and 17th century drama. That's it. Okay, and by modern we do not mean 20th or 19th century or something like 21st century drama. Okay, the second argument is between French drama and English drama, and then there is a little argument between rhyme and blank verse, whether rhyme should be employed in drama or blank verse. Okay, fine. So keep this in mind. Let's move on. These are the four characters. They are now familiar to you, and keep this in mind that we have got four characters for four different stances. The first argument between the ancient theatre and modern theatre would be between Critus and Eugenius. Okay, the second argument would be regarding French theatre and English theatre between Laertius and Neander. Okay, and the third argument would be between Critus and Neander. Okay, about rhyme and blank verse. Okay, so let's move on. Keep this in mind that they've already set up the definition of a drama, what a drama or play should be, though there is also a little difference between a play and drama, which I've already discussed in the class if you remember. So a play is a just and lively image of human nature representing expression in humors and the changes of fortune to which it is subject for delight and instruction of mankind. So it is the first delight and then instruction. Okay, and it would be a just, realistic image of human nature, and it would be lively too. Okay, a sort of like attractive image. Okay, beautiful image of human nature. Okay, fine. Just think about the definition of that poetry is the imitation of life. So what does Aristotle mean by imitation? You know that. So let's move on to the arguments. The first argument is between ancient and modern drama, and we have got two characters. The first character is Critus, who speaks for and supports the ancient theatre or ancient dramatist. Okay, Greek dramatist and Roman dramatist. Okay, Eugenius supports and educates modern English drama. Okay, the contemporary drama in the last age. Keep this in mind. This word is used in the in this text. Okay, in an essay of dramatic poesy. Okay, the last age, when it is used there and when you read it, so it would mean the Elizabethan dramatist. Okay, the Elizabethan age. Okay, or age of Shakespeare. Is this fine? Good. Okay, so these are the two opposite stances, and Critus believes that the ancients have laid down the principles and rules, the classical canons and what we know. Okay, so they have laid down the classical canons for the rest of them to follow, and according to Critus, it is said that that modern dramatist, English dramatist, they only imitate ancient. Okay, they do not have their own principles or rules. They are just shadows of Greek and Roman dramatists. Okay, whatever they set up, they are just supposed to follow them. Okay, is this fine? So it means that they are just copying them. Okay, they are just imitating them. Is this fine? Good. Okay, so and another argument is that the ancients imitate nature. Wow, that's also very sort of good argument for that. And the next one is that the modern dramatists only imitate ancient. So it's kind of like the object of imitation for ancients is different from that of modern dramatists. The modern dramatists, they just follow the beaten path, and that's what practice means here. Okay, unities of time and place and action. Okay, that is the criterion or criteria that they have set. Practice believes that if there is unity of time, place and action, so that's the perfect way to judge a certain literary work or even a dramatist. Okay, so practice believes that ancients follow and observe unities of time, place and action in their dramas. Okay, Eugenius believes that and keep this in mind that practice also mentions like Horace and Virgil and the rest of the Greek and Roman dramatists, including Sophocles and Euripides. Okay, Eugenius comes up with Ben Jonson that he is the one who follows unities of time, place and action in a strict literal sense. Okay, and that's true. In the whole Elizabethan age, you will find Ben Jonson the only dramatist who is classical. Okay, who follows classical canons in his works. Okay, Shakespeare does not follow that, and even the university wits disregard classical canons. Okay, mixing up the tragedies and this unities of time, place and action. Okay, so but Ben Jonson was a sort of a standing example there. Okay, so Eugenius quotes Ben Jonson to be a standing example and criticizes ancient, that even ancient dramatists disregarded these unities of time, place and action and other classical canons in their work. Okay, so he quotes even Virgil and Horace even, okay, that they actually could not follow classical canons even then. Okay, but English playwright Ben Jonson follows all of the classical canons perfectly well. Okay, but there is one thing more that we should note, that Eugenius criticizes ancient drama, ancient theatre, okay, Greek and Roman dramatists, more than justifying or listing or emphasizing the merits of modern English drama. Okay, that's the negative aspect. I mean, there are two ways: either to defend it or to degrade someone. Okay, you could do two things. Either you can come up with your own merits, or you could just mention the demerits of other person. So Eugenius actually does the second choice, like the second part. He criticizes ancients. Okay, he should also have the capacity. He should have the capacity to count some of the merits of modern English drama. Okay, which he doesn't. Neander will do later. Okay, so Eugenius criticizes ancient drama for some different reason. The first one is that ancient drama does not have poetic justice. Like poetic, one is dramatic justice and another is poetic justice. Poetic justice is lacking there. Okay, it means that the virtue is not rewarded and the vice is not punished in Greek dramas. Okay, this is what he believes, and this is also true to a very great extent. So the second one is, the second allegation that Eugenius counts is that of violating classical unities, that they themselves do not follow classical unities. Next, he says that there is too much narration at the cost of action. We see much narration in Greek and Roman dramas, okay, but there is not much action. Okay, so this is what drama is meant to be performed. So we should have action more than narration. but we see that there is more narration than action. So a lot of attention is given to narration, okay? Rather, it should be given to action. And next, he says that, Greek ancient theater or dramas lack love emotions, okay? That there is no, amorous kind of feelings, emotions in their dramas, okay? They do not know how to enact or present the human love emotions in their place, okay? And the last one is a striking one. The last allegation by Eugenius is that actually ancient dramas have non-monotonous and familiar themes. Whatever they talk about, it's like, most of the themes are about, legends, who are the known figures. Everybody knows much about them, okay? And this is a very good point, true, because, English drama will not come up with similar themes, okay? Like, for example, look at Shakespeare. We have got Othello, we have got, Macbeth, okay? We have got King Lear, okay? Though there could also be some, other familiar themes like Julius Caesar, who is also a legend somewhere in Greek dramas too, okay? Fine. But the point is, in Roman dramas. So, but the point is, that these dramas have got monotonous, boring kind of themes, okay? Like, for example, if the hero already, okay, if that's a familiar one, so we do not give much attention to such kind of dramas, okay? If the story is already known, if we know, that such and such character has done this and that. Aladdin ka Chiragh, Aladdin ka Chiragh, we know the story, okay? Or if there is any other legend, for example, that was not a legend, but this is just a story. But if the story is familiar, even we do not watch a movie for the second time if we know the story, okay? This is the reason. So that's the point that he makes, and this is credible. It's something that has got logic. Now we are moving towards the second argument, okay, and that's between the French theater and English theater, the contemporary English theater. Now Lysidius praises the French theater, okay, the French dramatist, whereas Neander, who is the last character, and that Neander should be taken as the mouthpiece of Dryden. He is actually Dryden himself, because the views held by Neander correspond to that of Dryden, okay, Dryden's views. So this is the point. So Neander admires Elizabethan, English playwrights, Elizabethan playwrights, England, and he talks about the liberty, okay, freedom. So French drama, Lysidius, believes that French drama, Lysidius praises French drama for not mixing tragedy and comedy, and even calls English tragicomedy as absurd, okay? So this is what, he comes up with the allegation, okay? Neander replies that English have invented, increased, perfected a more pleasant way of writing for the stage. It means that, this mixing up of tragedy and comedy is not something absurd, but rather it's a new invention, it's novelty, okay, and it's uniqueness, it's innovation, and it must be welcomed. It's a good thing, okay, fine. It's kind of a creativity of English playwrights, okay. Lysidius praises the excellence of French dramatists, specifically Perry Corneille, okay. Now this, Lysidius quotes and is very inspired by, by the dramas of Perry Corneille. So that, there is no English playwright who can, who could be equal to, Corneille. So Neander believes and defends that, and praises Shakespeare and Ben Jonson, that they are just they have got something which is unmatchable. Like, and this is true, even Shakespeare is known today. We do not know Cornell, who Cornell is or what he wrote, but almost everybody across cultures and regions and even religions and different races, Shakespeare is a known figure. Okay, so Shakespeare is of for all ages. Okay, and he quotes also Ben Jonson too, and there is no doubt Ben Jonson was also a great dramatist. So in the defense of mixing up this tragedy and comedy, Neander also talks about and claims that had Aristotle seen the English plays, he might have changed his mind. It means that that was a time of Aristotle, and Aristotle did not could not see the beauty of mixing tragedy with the comedy. If he had seen, he would have changed his mind. Okay, this is, I mean, that the classical canon that we have right now is not applicable, okay, to the present age. Okay, every age has got different requirements and taste. So that was Aristotle's opinion, but that's not something biblical in that sense. I mean, he means to say that that's a new innovation, and he just couldn't think of it. Okay, so the change is a better one. Okay, now we have seen that Lysidius, praises the French playwright, and Neander praises the English playwrights, and then they move on, to another argument in this series. Lysidius believes that French strictly observe unities of time, place, and action. That actually, they have not violated these classical canons. Okay, unity of time, unity of place, and unity of action. That time, it means that if the drama is of 2 hours, so it must capture only those 2 hours, not just a month or a year or some a century like that. Okay, the story must be about those 2 hours. That's it. Okay, and if there is something before and after, it must be quoted. It must be narrated at that time. But this picture must be, this presentation must be that of just those 2 hours. Okay, and unity of place, that the place must remain the same. Okay, fine, that the place must not change. If the drama opens up somewhere in a castle, so it must be there in the castle. The camera must not go to somewhere other place. Okay, like for example, like in modern dramas, we see that if we see one scene in castle, so we see another scene somewhere in battle, and some other scene in some other places, like some room or some other places like that. So that's just violating the unity of place. And action is that there should be just a single action with a single theme. Okay, so the action must be one in single. Okay, so the drama must have just one plot. Neander believes and defends this point. Okay, defends the practice of Shakespeare and Ben Jonson and other English playwrights like this, that in adherence to unities prevent depth. Deviation of unities gives diverse themes, and this is very beautiful. Even later on, you will see Samuel Johnson would also believes that. Okay, he in the Lives of the Poets, he has also mentioned that there shouldn't be adherence to unities of place, action, and time. Why? Because they prevent the depth. Okay, if we do not have unities, so we'll have in-depth theme in the drama. So this is a sort of deviation. This kind of deviation of unities, or this violation of unities, would give diverse themes, which is a good omen. It's a good thing. So secondly, he pinpoints out another way, that same plot brings boredom. If there is just one plot, so it is a boring one. So why not have some subplots? Subplots would make the play interesting, more interesting. Okay, we'll have many plots, we'll have many stories, we'll have many scenes and action, and we'll have many themes. So the audience will enjoy if like this is a kind of like दो मजे एक ticket में. So it's kind of like that. Next point is that of like Lizadius points out another fact that actually French dramatists in French dramas, the acts of bloodshed are narrated rather than presented. That actually the scene of bloodshed are not presented on the stage. So on the other hand, he is actually criticizing English theatre, where actually the bloodshed scenes are presented, okay, practically on the stage. So, and this is very true, of course. This university wits, okay, they have invented and introduced this concept of presenting the bloodshed scenes on the stage, and true, and even Shakespeare followed that too. So Neander defends this point that English people, English audience, like battle and other objects of honor to be seen on stage. So it's kind of like it's not just an argument between French theatre and English theatre, but this is also an argument between France and England. And keep this in mind that these four characters are going on board to see the battle, and that battle is actually, that was in reality fought between Dutch and England, okay, and where actually England won this battle. True, this is also mentioned in the history. So it's kind of like, it's not just about like talking about the theatre and the drama and the English drama. It is a defense of, it's not the defense of only drama. This essay is not in the defense of only drama or the dramatists or theatre or people, but rather this is also about the nationalism. Okay, they love England. They, Dryden has shown his love for his England, for his country, the freedom that they enjoy, and also their bravery, that they are going to fight, and they love battles, and they also won the battles, and they will not just stop their conquest. Okay, and this is true because later you see in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century they have occupied almost more than half of the world and made colonies of that. So this was a point that actually English audience like battle and other objects of honor. So this bloodshed, the scene of bloodshed, this fighting is basically an honor. Okay, this is something cowards don't do and don't like to watch. So according to Neander, and that's actually the voice of Dryden. So Dryden believes that there is nothing bad. Like if bloodshed scenes are presented on the stage practically, okay, so it means that English people like them, okay, and they are just the objects, and similar other objects of honor are liked by English audience. So that's not a demerit, okay, it's fine. So the last point by Lizadius is basically that they combine history with tragedy to make it more interesting. That was a point by Lizadius, that actually they bring history in, which actually Neander had already defended that actually there is nothing new, okay, like between the if you remember in the previous argument, Eugenius talks about that actually the ancient classical, okay, they talk about the history, they do not talk about the present scenario, okay, where actually Eugenius and Neander, they believe that there must be diversity, and we should talk about life, present life, the contemporary world, okay. We shouldn't be talking about like those dead heroes or history all the time, and those legends, okay, because they are known to the people, their stories and bravery, they are also known to the people, okay. So we should have some new concepts and new themes in our dramas. The last point by Neander is that he praises and declares Shakespeare equal to Homer, and Ben Jonson as Virgil, and look at this one, Homer and Virgil, they were the greatest dramatists of the time, okay, and Greek dramatists. And Shakespeare Shakespeare and Ben Jonson have earned these positions which Virgil and Homer had occupied in their own lifetime. Now move on to the third argument, and that's rhyme versus blank verses debate. Here is just a little debate. Critus believes and comes up with the point that rhyme is not allowed in serious plays, but should be allowed in comedies. So he believes that we shouldn't use rhyme, but instead we should have blank verse in drama. Neander claims that tragedy is a serious play. Rhyme is also it is the noblest kind of verse. So why not we employ rhyme in the tragedy? Okay, fine. So it must be employed. There is no harm in that. Okay, and it's a good practice. English, dramatists did that. Secondly, Critus believes that rhymes seem unnatural, as no man speaks in rhyme. So Critus believes that drama is a sort of like a form of literature in which we have got dialogues, and dialogues are uttered by the characters, so they must be lifelike, like they must capture the just image of human, like their dialogues must also be like common people, and to some extent this point is also valid. Neander believes that actually the primary function of poetry is delight. Rhyme enables the poet to function well. So it means that Neander believes that rhyme is a beautiful technique employed by poets, and whatever poets and these writers produce, they are meant to delight the audience, to delight the people in the audience and the readers. So if they employ something just like rhyme, which is not usually used by common people in their speech, but if they add something to the beauty of their work, so it must be employed that. Okay, why? Because it will enhance the beauty, and likewise in the end the delight of the drama. Okay, so that's the argument by Neander. Now move on to the third and the last point by Critus, that is, the blank verse is also unnatural, but it is near to prose. Like Critus believes that rhyme should not be used in drama. Rather, blank verse is suitable one. Why? Because blank verse is closer to prose. Okay, and blank verse should be employed in the drama. Now Neander defends this point like this, that blank verses are not poetry. Okay, they are poetic prose. So this is what he believes, that there is no harm, and if that be rhyme, so it's not a big deal. Okay, and likewise the argument ends. Okay, that was a summary as well as some critical views about their dialogues, and that's the end of the whole discussion. But we should have also some a recap of whatever we have covered, and we should also have some some points which could not be included in that discussion. That's why we should discuss it right here. Okay. Secondly, I've taken some dialogues, some from the text. I've taken some quotes, okay, from the text. So we should also discuss that. They are very important. So a battle is going on between England and Netherlands, Dutch actually. 4 gentlemen, namely Critus, Eugenius, Lysidius and Neander, are travelling by boat to see the battle and started a discussion on modern literature. Okay. Critus opens the discussion by saying that none of his contemporaries, moderns, can equal the standards and the rules set by ancient Greeks and Romans. Eugenius restrains him, okay, stops him from wasting time on finding demerits. He asks him to find relative merit in Greeks and moderns. So he does not actually come up with his merits, but rather he he challenges Critias to show up any merit in Greek and modern, to show the relative merit between Greeks and moderns. Okay, so it kind of like it was a sort of like a trick or a technique to defend his point. Now, Critias' views could be summarized like that. Critias is the admirer of ancients, and this is why he favors classical drama. The drama of Aristotle, who believed that drama is imitation of life, Critias holds the drama of such ancients is successful because it depicts life, true life. He says that both classical and neoclassical favor rules and unities, time, place, and action, and that's why they are best. According to Critias, modern dramatists are shadows of Aeschylus, who is actually a dramatist. Sophocles, Seneca, and Terence, and you could add Sophocles too. They are all Roman and Greek dramatists. Elizabethan dramatist Ben Jonson borrowed from classics and felt proud to call himself modern Horace. This is what Critias has discussed in his argument. Okay, so he's attacking on Ben Jonson. Okay, that he follows the classical dramatist and he's imitating, copying, and he calls himself modern Horace, who was a great figure, literary figure, dramatist. The classical is more skillful in language than their successors. Okay, so even their language was better than modern. This is what Critias believes, and we know that Critias is against the modern, but rather he admires Greek and Roman classical dramatists. At this he ends up his conversation. That was the argument by Critias. Now move on to another one is left. We should also discuss that. There are so few who write well in this age that methinks any praises should be welcome. They neither raise to the dignity of last age means Elizabethan age, nor to any of the ancient. You have debauched the true old poetry so far that nature, which is the soul of art, is not in any of your writings. So this is, Critias believes that you have debauched, okay, you have like altered and you have degraded the old poetry, which was like which was very pure and very prestigious, okay, and you could not sustain the dignity of poetry, and that's why when you just couldn't follow classical canons. Okay, this was what Critias believes. Okay, now look at some of the dialogues by Eugenius. Eugenius favors modern dramatist. Okay, this is modern dialogue. This is just dialogues are just later. Okay, Eugenius favors modern dramatist. However, instead of telling about the virtues of modern, he criticizes the faults of classical playwrights, and that's true. We have already discussed and known that. According to him, the classical drama is not divided into acts and also lacks originality. Okay, and we have also discussed this point. Their tragedies are based on worn-out myths that are already known to the audience, and their comedies are based on overused curiosity of stolen heiresses and miraculous restoration. So it's kind of like he is criticizing the ancient dramatist for some reasons that actually their topics, their themes are worn out. There is nothing new, okay, and their comedies are employ the same kind of thing. That there would be some stolen heiresses, and there are some stolen heiresses, and there is a curiosity, and they just try to come up with some dialogues, and that's their comedy. Okay. Secondly, and there is kind of like then they are restored miraculously, like some strange, in a strange way, and this is what Eugenius attacks. This is how he attacks. Okay, their disregard poetic justice. Instead of punishing the vice and rewarding the virtue, they have often shown prosperous wickedness and an unhappy devotion. The classical drama also lacks affection. So there are two things here. The first one is that there is no poetic justice. Okay, instead of punishing the vice and rewarding the virtue, they have often shown prosperous wickedness and an unhappy devotion. So it's kind of like, that the virtue is not properly rewarded, rather it is punished, and the evil, the vice, is not punished, but sometimes they are left, unpunished. Okay, they enjoy. This is kind of like, poetic justice. So there is no poetic justice in Greek and Roman dramas. Okay, this is what he believes. And then the classical drama also lacks affection. So we do not feel emotional dialogues. We do not see emotional dialogues in their dramas. And that's very true. If you read or watch Oedipus Rex, and you keep this point in mind, you wouldn't feel any kind of like emotional dialogues there. So move on to the next point. The heroes of Homer were lovers of appetite, food, etc., while the modern characters of French drama gave up everything, sleep, water, and food, for the sake of love. So this is another attack not only on Greek but also on French theatre. Okay, that the heroes in Homer's drama were lovers of appetite, like food, etc. Okay, while in French dramas, the heroes just give up everything, like sleep and water and food, and so that's not the way the heroes should do. Okay, this is what he means. So English dramas are much better in this regard, according to him. So, and I like one thing. I've taken this dialogue, I should have been on the top, that when he starts like that, have reverence for antiquity, okay, but don't decry your contemporary countrymen. This is what Eugenius believes, and that's the same thing, the same belief held by Neander, that we should have respect for the old, for the ancient, but we should not degrade our own countrymen, our own fellows. Okay, the modern English. Okay, that's what and that's the crux of their discussion in that sense. Rather, this dialogue is actually the crux of the whole essay of dramatic poesy. Keep this in mind. Okay, this is what Dryden is doing. Dryden is trying to defend that we should, their respect must be there. We respect their originality, their efforts, their devotion and contribution. But we should also appreciate our own English writers, okay? Our own poetry and poets. Okay, now, what is there? Oops. Okay, fine, sorry. Okay, move on to the last one. There is one more. The English drama of the 16th century is superior because it has characters drawn from the nobility, royal family and lords. Now, Eugenius believes that English drama is better because it has taken characters from upper class, elite class. But that's not a good point. This is what his argument is, but it's not valid, because drama is not superior because of the characters drawn from the upper class, but rather how they are presented in the themes, the story, how plot is structured. So, but anyhow, that's what he believes. Now move on to Lycidius. The 4 points. Lycidius favors French drama of earlier 17th century. French drama led by Pierre Corneille strictly followed units of time, place and action. The French dramatist never makes tragedy and comedy. That is his first point. The French dramatists interweave truth with fiction to make it interesting, bringing elements that lead to fate and borrow from history to reward the virtues which he was earlier deprived of. They strictly adhere to the poetic justice, reward the virtue and punish the vice. This is, Lycidius is actually is talking in favor of, French, okay, dramatist. Okay, he speaks for French. For this, they even alter the original situation. They means French dramatists. They prefer emotions over plots. Violent actions take place off the stage and are told by messengers rather than showing them in real. Okay, this is what Lysidius believes, that this is a great trait by French dramatists, that they do not present violent actions on the stage. Okay, and they prefer emotions over plots. Okay, like they have got single plot. Okay, they do not come up with subplots, so unity of action is not violated. Okay, and they also observe poetic justice in their dramas, like they reward the virtue and punish the vice. Okay, let's move on. Now, views of Neander. Neander contradicts Lysidius' arguments who favors the superiority of French drama. He talks about the greatness of Elizabethan. He means Neander talks about the greatness of Elizabethans. For him, Elizabethans fulfill the drama's requirement, that is, imitation of life. French drama raises perfection but has no soul or emotions, yet it primarily focuses on the plot. For Neander, tragicomedy is the best form of drama. Both sadness as well as joy are heightened and are set side by side. Hence, it is closest to life. So, this practice is appreciated by Dryden through Neander's dialogue. He believes that subplots enrich the drama. This French drama, having a single plot, lacks this vividness. Okay. Further, Samuel Johnson, even who defended Shakespeare, disregard of unities, also believes that adherence to unities prevents depth. So this is a good thing. According to him, deviation from set rules and unities gives diverse themes to drama. Neander rejects the arguments that change of place and time diminishes dramatic credibility in drama. Now, for him, human actions will seem more natural if they get enough time to develop. It means that we should have more plots. He also argues that Shakespeare is now, keep this in mind, that he is now moving towards Shakespeare. He praises Shakespeare, Ben Jonson, and even Chaucer in this essay. Okay, and it is the Neander who does this. Okay, in his dialogues. So he says, and keep this in mind, this is a very classical dialogue, okay, by Dryden. Okay, sometimes even in the test, in the competitive exam, we come across this dialogue. That's why I've included this. He also argues that Shakespeare is the man who, of all the modern and perhaps ancient poets, had the largest and most comprehensive soul. Sometimes the question is like that: who said this dialogue? So it is by Dryden. Okay, he is praising Shakespeare, the man who had the largest and most comprehensive soul of all the modern and perhaps ancient poets. Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher's dramas are rich in wit and have smoothness and polish in their language. They are also, English dramatists which Neander admires, which means Dryden admires. Neander says, "I'm apt to believe the English language in them arrived at its highest perfection." He's now praising Fletcher and Beaumont. And if Ben Jonson is a genius for correctness, Shakespeare excels him in wit. So Ben Jonson follows classical unities, classical canons. Okay, the law of poetry set by Greeks, and Shakespeare excels him in wit. So if Shakespeare disregards classical unities, he excels in wit. He has shown his wisdom, okay, his genius. So his arguments end up, his means Neander. Arguments end up with the familiar comparison. Shakespeare was the Homer, or father of dramatic poets. Jonson was the Virgil, the pattern of elaborate writing. I admire him, but I love Shakespeare. I admire Ben Jonson, but I love Shakespeare. This is also a very classical dialogue by Dryden. I love Ben Jonson. Sorry, I admire Ben Jonson, but I love Shakespeare. Okay, this is what you have to remember. So move on, dears, to the next point. Thus, for him, Elizabethans, and keep this in mind that he's talking about Shakespeare and Ben Jonson, who actually passed almost somehow less than a century ago. Okay. Thus, for him, Elizabethans are superior because they have a variety of themes, emotions, deviations, and wit. They do not adhere to rules as well. Thus, their drama is really an imitation of life. This is what he believes. Dryden's views about some of the poets, let's see. He was the first English poet, so we should not expect perfection from him instead of criticizing him. Okay? Here he's talking about actually Chaucer. Okay? That Chaucer was the first English poet, so we should not expect perfection from him instead of criticizing him. Okay? So he showed English society of the time. Okay? He was diamond, but an unpolished diamond. Okay? Dryden's believes also praises Chaucer for his creativity and his genius in writing Canterbury Tales and some other stuff. So Dryden believes that Chaucer was diamond, but an unpolished diamond. So it was the first attempt, and there is nothing bad, because that was he was best in his own time. Right now we are talking like he belonged to 14th century, and Dryden is now talking in the 17th century. Okay, so look at the time. So now you are judging Shakespeare, you are judging Chaucer of 14th century in 17th century. So of course there is also some difference of opinion. Just like right now, if you judge Shakespeare right now in 21st century, so look at this one. Shakespeare belongs to 16th century, and if some of the critics evaluate his genius or in his work right now in 21st century, so that's not very just. Okay, it's not fair. So Shakespeare for Dryden is the man who of all the modern and perhaps ancient poets had the largest and most comprehensive soul. Dryden calls Ben Jonson the most. Okay, he has also praised Ben Jonson in these words: the most learned and judicious writer which any theatre ever had. This is a tribute to Ben Jonson by Dryden. Okay, through Neander's dialogue. I admire Jonson, but I love Shakespeare. I love this. Okay, now the boat on which they all were riding reaches its destination. The stairs at Somerset House, and the discussion ends without any conclusion being made. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. We'll discuss another critic, inshallah, in the next lecture. Thank you.